S.H.I.E.L.D. to protect people. Captain, to build a better world, sometimes means tearing the old one down. And that makes enemies.
Hey everyone, I'm Captain Sandwich, and this is my review for Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now, I know that there are a lot of spoiler reviews out right now, as there typically is with Marvel movies, but I just want to make it clear that this is a spoiler-free review. You can watch this having not seen the movie, and you won't, and nothing big will be ruined for you, or I'll try my best at least, just to stick to the basics and give you just the overall skeletal structure of my thoughts on the movie. So here goes. Captain America: The Winter Soldier stars Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, Anthony Mackie, and Robert Redford. And it follows in the same pattern as the rest of the Phase 2 Avengers movies, namely Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World, in that it shows these characters' lives and the events of what happens to them after the Avengers, and also kind of in preparation for the Avengers: Age of Ultron next summer. So now it's Captain America's turn, and Steve Rogers has basically become more or less Nick Fury's right-hand man. Nick Fury is the brains of the operation. Steve Rogers goes out, and he's the muscle, and he goes and kicks some ass for good old America. And they discover basically a very intricate plan of put up by Hydra, which was of course started by Red Skull, Captain America's foe from the first movie back in the 40s. He started Hydra, and it has basically been infecting S.H.I.E.L.D. since its creation, and now their plan is coming to fruition. Hydra is slowly taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. to the point where our main heroes really can't trust anybody. So it's basically up to Steve Rogers, Nick Fury, Black Widow, as well as the newcomer Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, to figure out how to stop Hydra and save S.H.I.E.L.D. before it completely crumbles. Now, I will say this movie tries to do a lot. Granted, the other Phase 2 movies do too, especially Thor, but I felt like this movie tried to do a lot, like much more than the other films thus far, post Avengers, because you have Hydra taking over S.H.I.E.L.D., and so you get a lot of the background of Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. You get a lot of character background, especially with Nick Fury and Black Widow, and you get the introduction of Falcon. You get all these kind of very complicated parallel, storylines just all crammed into one movie. And initially that would be a very tough thing to handle. And sorry about the cut there, my camera battery died. But as I was saying, that would normally be a lot to handle. But granted, the Avengers had a similarly complicated storyline, and it did it just fine. In fact, of course, the Avengers is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, and by far my favorite movie in the Avengers, in like this whole film series. So I think overall they did do a pretty good job of integrating everything that they introduced, and for the most part nothing really felt like it was just kind of tacked on. That said, I felt like they did try to do too much. There are a few moments where a new storyline, a new plot point came in, and I'm just like it feels a little overwhelming sometimes. But that said, that's one of the only negatives I have about the movie. This this is a phenomenal Marvel movie. It's great. It's a lot of fun. And, I think Marvel is really, the films are really maturing now, because especially this one and Iron Man 3, you see just really humanizing of these characters. And Captain America Winter Soldier definitely has a lot of more serious tones to it. There is humor in it. There is still the same fun action that you're used to, but it is a little bit darker. It is a little more serious, especially because of this whole thing with S.H.I.E.L.D. And they just kind of have to face the reality that S.H.I.E.L.D. is far from perfect, and it has this evil core within it, and now, it's kind of just this whole big thing of what to do. And so, again, I think it handles all of that really well, and couple of times, as I said, it just feels a little too bloated. And so for me, it was enough to bog the movie down to make it, like I said, it's phenomenal, but, basically I hold the two biggest Avengers movies that I love, the top two in my opinion, Iron Man and the Avengers. Captain America, Winter Soldier is probably just if they're here, it's right there. It's above the others, but not quite as good as those two. There's just, but I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot to love in this movie. There really is. The acting especially, I mean, the veterans, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, it seems like they're really getting into their roles. I mean, just the facial expressions and the subtlety of their acting just really blew me away this time. There was so much there that I hadn't seen before, or at least I hadn't noticed before. And it seems like they're just really kind of connecting with their characters in new, awesome ways. I'll talk about the Winter Soldier himself, because he just, despite being a titular character, he's not in it very much, at least until the third act. And I thought there was some good and some bad to that. The good is that you really get a lot of build-up and suspense about this guy, because he's just like this unstoppable killing machine, and you don't know anything about him until about halfway through the movie. But he's just kind of this big mystery that just, he's working with Hydra, but he's never really on screen that much. He never speaks. You never see him in discussion with anyone from Hydra. It's just kind of, hey, can you go kill this guy? And then that's it. Just like I said, he's just kind of this ruthless, silent killing machine. So that aspect of it is cool. Unfortunately, he's not in the movie enough, and even when he is, he's not really the central focus. The central focus is Hydra and what they bring to the table in terms of infecting S.H.I.E.L.D. So I honestly, I think just because of how little they focus on the Winter Soldier, I don't think it's right to call Captain America the Winter Soldier. I don't think that's right, because he's far from the main focus. He's probably third or fourth on the line on the list of things that this movie gives attention to. But it was still a fun experience as always. If you haven't figured it out by now, stick around after the credits, because you get some really cool stuff. And there's a bunch of twists and turns. I will definitely say, I heard about a couple weeks before I saw this movie, some early reviews were coming in, and one basically said, you need to watch this movie before Age of Ultron, because this movie has a huge impact on the world of the Avengers that you cannot miss. And I know exactly what that reviewer was talking about. Yeah, if you plan on seeing Age of Ultron next summer, please see this first. Even if you don't have much interest in Captain America, watch this movie because this is probably the biggest impact of any movie in the Avengers series outside of the Avengers itself. There's a lot of big stuff that happens in this movie that I don't dare ruin for you. Just go out and see it. As for me, solid acting, just mostly good writing, a few spots where it's just too much, and too little focus on the Winter Soldier. But you know, that's still good, and that's it's definitely worth a rewatch. It's definitely something that I'm going to be picking up as soon as it comes out on DVD. It was a lot of fun, and it was probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, film experience of the year so far. So that's it. Until next time, this is Captain Sandwich, signing out.